Hi, welcome to Monique's Home. Thanks for joining me in this video. Today we are going to explore math and how that looks like for your baby, for your toddler, for your preschooler, and how we can use everyday ordinary situations to make math fun for kids. So I have a story to share. When I was working in the preschool, I had a parent inquire for her 2-year-old. So she was going to enroll her daughter. And as I was explaining the curriculum, the program, what it is that we do in the preschool, she asked, "When will my daughter learn how to add?" And it made me realize that parents are so supportive of their children's learning, which is a great thing. I'm that way with my kids too. But sometimes we lack the knowledge and the vocabulary for it. We don't really understand how learning, how development looks like for our babies, for our toddlers, and for our preschoolers. Take this parent for example. It seems like for her, math is about the operations, addition, subtraction, that she probably learned in grade school. But math is so much more than that. Numeracy, our word for the day, numeracy, is about understanding numbers and being able to apply them in everyday situations, being able to manipulate them, reason with them, such as when you're at a store and there's a sale and you figure out you're saving money because you've computed for the discounts. I think that what a lot of early childhood educators would hope for us parents to understand is that many of the academic concepts that our children learn later on in grade school and high school have their foundations in the early years, and that maybe many of the activities that we see in preschool or that we see toddlers engaging in that we think are not learning experiences are actually building strong foundations for more advanced skills. Numeracy, or an understanding of numbers, start in the very early years. Our babies can tell the difference between an empty bottle of milk versus a bottle of milk that's full. Toddlers can tell the difference between a small pile of blocks and a big pile of blocks. So the key there is for us parents, for us adults working with the children, to be able to take this run-of-the-mill ordinary situations and be very intentional in our language, in our interaction, so that we can take these opportunities and turn them into learning experiences so we can build on our children's understanding. There are 4 things to keep in mind when introducing your children to numbers. Number 1 is to keep it interesting. If you think back to our video about the 6 must-dos for effective homeschooling, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Children respond better when it's engaging for them. When you turn it into some sort of play, it really catches their attention. Number 2 is that children learn through hands-on activities. They take in information with their senses, so be sure to use real objects, concrete ones that you see around the house, like their blocks, their dinosaur toys, even their fingers and their toes. Third thing to remember is that for most concepts, we have to introduce it again and again for better understanding. So make use of events that happen in your daily routine. For example, with your baby. When you're bathing your baby, count their little toes, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, and do it every day that you bathe. For your toddler, if you go for a walk around your neighborhood, point out the house numbers or the shape of the stop sign. So keep in mind that the key there is repetition, and not to expect that if you introduce a concept one time, that your child will automatically be able to apply it for the next time. Number 4 is to keep in mind that learning, development takes time, and it's different from person to person. Some people will pick up things easily. Some people will need more time to understand certain concepts. So what you want to do is really be intentional in observing your children and watch out not only for interest, but also for readiness. So as I said, math is not just about numbers. Today, we're going to explore 3 math concepts that you see every day with your children. First is vocabulary. As your baby, your toddler, your preschooler continue to develop their language abilities, I encourage you to equip them with words that are not only for numbers, but for mathematical ideas. For example, if it's feeding time for your baby, hand her the bowl and simply say, "Your bowl is full." When she's done eating, just say, "Your bowl is empty." Or for your toddler, like my son, he loves Bumblebee. the Transformers and not the bee. So he has bumblebees of varying sizes and he's always playing with them. So I recognize that as a learning opportunity. And I would just simply say, oh, that's a big bumblebee, or you're playing with your small bumblebee. I could have simply said, you're playing with bumblebee. But because I'm being intentional in my interaction, I remember, oh, I can introduce him to vocabulary and just create a learning experience for him. Now for your preschoolers, your 3, 4, your 5-year-olds. Maybe they're building a tower of blocks. Turn it into a game and say, your turn first, your turn second, your turn third, your turn fourth, or even with your toddler. You could do it at home, just the two of you. Get a couple of blocks and show him or her that you're going to take turns to build a tower. So you say, mom's turn first, your turn second, mom's turn third, and really just using that opportunity to introduce him to the vocabulary for order. Next up is counting, and this is one thing that I always talk to parents about when they consult me about their children's learning. So some would come up to me and say, my child knows up to 50. And I ask, what do you mean he knows up to 50? Do you mean he can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all the way up to 50? Or do you mean he knows how to count a group of objects and say, this is 10, this is 50? So those two things are very different. The first one, when you're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 50 or all the way up to 100, that's rote counting or just counting from memory. The second one is rational counting, or when you're able to quantify. For example, if you show your child some blocks and you say, can you count the blocks? And he counts and says 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you say, how many blocks do you have? And he says 2. But it's not 2, it's 4. Well, you don't say that. It was just in my head, right? So that's not being able to quantify. That's not rational counting. So if your child is able to say 1, 2, 3, 4 and say, I have 4 blocks, then that's rational counting. Now, learning how to count need not be boring. You are not confined to just use flashcards. You don't have to always come up to your child and say, this is a number 1. What number is it? 1. Can you say it again? 1. It's number 1. You can make it more fun. You can make it more engaging. Use songs. I've never met a baby or a toddler or a preschooler who did not enjoy songs. So this is one song that will be great for rote counting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I let it go again. Why did you let it go? Because it bit my finger so. Which finger did it bite? This little finger on my right.
Shapes are another mathematical concept, and art activities are a great way to introduce your children to it. Even my 7-year-old and my 6-year-old, they love it when I ask them to create a new picture out of shapes that we cut out from colored paper. Now, when you're working with your younger children, your toddlers, your preschoolers, the key there is, again, to be very intentional with the words that you use, to think about your interaction with them. So instead of saying, use this for the face, you could say it as, how about you use this circle for the face? Or how about you use these 2 circles for the eyes? So now you're taking an ordinary situation and turning it into a learning opportunity just by simply saying the words 2 and circles. You're introducing them to counting, you're introducing them to shapes. Books are another great way to introduce shapes or any other mathematical concept. They need not be reference books. They can be picture books, they can be story books, and you don't have to sit your kids down and show them the shapes in the book. It doesn't have to be like a whole planned thing. Like for us, story time is a regular part of our daily routine. We do it every night before the kids go to bed. So these 2 books, Friend Shape and Not a Box are examples of storybooks or picture books that are so engaging for children, but at the same time, you can use them to introduce them to the vocabulary of shapes, like to the name of shapes. So I would use this when Raphael was much younger. We'd go through the story. Martina and Renee would enjoy listening to the story, but once in a while, I would point out the shapes and name them for Raphael. So we'll stop at 3 today. We have vocabulary for math, there's counting, and there's shapes recognition. There are a lot more mathematical concepts, but we'll save it for the next video. So from now until then, I hope you picked up some ideas in this episode that you can use to highlight the math that is in your everyday routines with your children. So again, my name is Monique. This is Monique's home, my home. Thanks for popping by. Please consider liking this video, sharing, subscribing. I will see you next time. But until then, remember to make your everyday your own version of extraordinary.